And then I landed up working for, got a friend of mine who saw my potential, and he got me to work in his retail clothing store. And I helped to turn that business around. It wasn't doing well at the time I got there. I was 23 at the time, and I got into the newspaper, and in the daily news on page 4. And I got a call at about 10 o'clock in the morning, and a man said, "I've just read the article," with an American accent, and he said, "I'm sending my driver to pick you up."
Sending my driver to pick you up?
Yeah. To make it worse, it was a black BMW with tinted windows. It arrived. I walked outside the shop. I looked inside the car. It was a small guy, so I thought, no, I'll be okay.
Defend yourself.
I can defend myself. He takes me off to this Smith Street at the time
in Durban.
In Durban,
yeah.
And I go up to my offices, big boardroom, sitting there, and I meet this man, and he asks me all sorts of questions. And I'm young, I'm nervous, and eventually he says, "How much do you earn?"
Right.
So I said to him, "I earn 3,500 rand net." And so I thought, net, I knew about tax. And so I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll pay you 3,500 rand. You sit on the beach, come up with any business you like, and I'll back you."
So he's offering you a salary to start a business?
Yes, 3,500, and you just need to come and I'll back you. And I said, "No, there's something wrong here." So I said, "Thank you, sir." And I went back to the shop, and my friend said, "What was that?" And I said, "Some crazy guy." I didn't believe it. About 2 weeks later, the same man phones me back and says, "What are you still doing there?" And so I realized it was true, and I started a journey, and to now come up with a business. Now, what business do you get into? Like, somebody says, get into a business.
Any business.
Any business. I'll back you. Turns out this guy's a dollar billionaire, and not a Zim dollar, a US dollar billionaire. Okay. And
what year is this?
This is early 90s.
The early 90s?
Yeah.
He was already a dollar billionaire.
Yeah. And anyway, so I started a business called the New York Sausage Factory, which was, I'd come up with this idea around hot dogs, and I won't go into how I got to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I started in Pinetown. I started my first store in Pinetown, just outside of Durban, and it was a complete failure. And I couldn't get this business to work. And I opened up for the breakfast trade. I opened an evening trade. I worked 7 days a week. I stopped eating. I actually, one day when I was driving home at about 11 o'clock at night, I passed out while I was driving because I hadn't been eating. And anyway,
working 7 days a week.
Because I refused to fail. I didn't want to fail.
Mm.
And eventually I had to come to the conclusion I'd failed. And if you think about it, now think about that situation. I had every single opportunity. I had a private education. Yeah, I didn't, so I'm a privileged white kid. I've got a backer.
Many white people don't say that.
Okay. I've got a backer.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's going to back me.
A billionaire for that matter.
Yeah. I've got, he didn't say you must go into this. So how do you now, you can't, what can you blame, right? You can't blame anything.
Can't blame education.
You can't blame education. You can't blame anything. So I had to then, in that sort of struggle, to come to that it was me that failed. So that was a very, very hard, to get to that place as a young, and I don't know if you remember in your 20s, you're quite arrogant. You're going to take over the world.
Yeah. And I'm going to be a billionaire by 25.
Exactly. So you go through that journey, and then I eventually went to see him at his apartment, and I said to him, I failed, and quite very dramatically, if I spend the rest of my life, I'll pay you back. And I started walking to the lift, to the elevator. Obviously, he had a private elevator. He was in the penthouse. So he shouts out. He says, "Sit down." With his deep voice, "Sit down." Crap myself. I sat down. He says, "Did I back you or did I back the business?" I said, You backed me. So he says, "Right now, the business has failed. If you walk out that door, you have failed." Okay. And that was such a instructive moment in my life. He said, "If you had to do it again, what would you do differently?" And then I said to him, I changed the menu, I changed the venue, I changed the pricing. I told him everything I would do. So he says to me, "Okay, I'm going to back you again, but I'm not giving you money. I'm going to give you people. I'm going to give you," there was a guy who was always on my case. I called him Negative Ned. He was an accountant. He was always like on me. On me. So he says, "He's going to be your finance person." He owned an ad agency in Durban. He says, "The CEO is going to become your marketing guy." And he put a team of people around me. He says, so I said, "Well, how am I going to open up the next door?" He says, "That's your problem. I'll back you by giving you the people." And so with this team of people around me, with 5 people around me, I worked with them.
So you had a finance guy, marketing?
I had a let's call it a strategy guy. And he gave me someone to help me with admin. You could just put a team of people around me. There were 5 people around me. And with those people.
No, I want to know those people.
Strategy, finance, marketing, sales, and admin.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So that team, then I worked with them, and we opened up our second store at the Pavilion Shopping Center in Westville, a 52 square meter little store, and that shop took off.